Hi, this is Don Airey from Deep Purple, and you're listening to Linear Rock. Yes, you are.
Whoosh. Okay. Hi, John. So welcome to Linear Rock.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Such a pleasure to have you finally. Okay, so
Well, I'd
Whoosh.
prefer it if I was actually in Italy, but
Yeah.
I mean, with the way things are going,
Yeah. For us too. Next time you'll be in our studios.
Yeah. I hope so.
Okay, so Whoosh is a very particular title from this, album number 21 for Deep Purple. Can you explain how the word whoosh is actually used in your everyday language and why it fits so perfectly this new album?
Well, it just, there you go. It's all gone. It's all happened. And it wasn't as important as we thought, here today, gone tomorrow, but it's kind of, I think it was Ian Gillan's idea, and he's talking about, how short human life is, in comparison to the universe. And as it turns out, very prophetically with what's been going on the last few months. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So Bob Ezrin, is someone who leaves, his profound trademark in everything he does. He did it, with Kiss, Pink Floyd, Aerosmith, Alice Cooper, and often, in very crucial moments. This is the third time, actually, that you have worked with Bob. What is the sign that he has left on Deep Purple in the recent years, and especially on this brand new record?
Well, I think when we first met him, he said, I'd love to do a record with you guys, but not, we don't want it to be radio friendly. Just do that thing you do. He'd been to see a concert. He saw us playing in Toronto, and at the Massey Hall. What a gig that was. And he just said, do that. Don't try and get in the hit parade, guys. So that's what it is. So we've just really, followed our instincts. And what happens is we get all our material together for 2 weeks, and then Bob comes in and says what he doesn't like or what he likes. He's very much part of it. You don't really know how he does what he does, but you know that he does it. I mean, he's cleverer than all of us put together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. So I also read that you worked a little bit differently this time. Actually, Ian Gillan said that, that you arrived in the studio that you were not prepared this time, and you wanted to leave, room for improvisation and interaction within the band creatively. Is that true? Is that exactly how?
It's something I haven't thought of till now, but that's actually what happened. We didn't completely, finishing everything off in the rehearsal room. We just left it. And I think what Bob was after was something that was a bit more that was very spontaneous. For example, I mean, I got very few keyboard overdubs. A lot of the keyboards are absolutely live on the take.
Wow.
And, I said to him, I think I should do that again. And he'd go, well, I think not.
So you mean that it's never too late to learn something new? Actually, even if you're legends, living legends.
Heavens, yeah. If you don't learn, you're not going anywhere. If you stay where you are and looking back all the time. I think that's the great thing about Bob. He makes you think harder about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And don't be old, be young again. That's what he wanted us to be. Be young again. Come on, guys.
That's cool.
We threw away our walking sticks and our wheelchairs,
Okay, so who came up with the motto, Deep Purple is putting the deep back in purple during the recordings of this album, and why?
I think it was Roger Glover, actually. Yeah, we just wanted to be. I think in the old days with Purple, they were very informal. You know, when they recorded, you know, it was all in the studio and all, hey, let's do this and let's do that, and there was a lot of that. It was the most enjoyable album we've done in Nashville.
Yeah.
With me working with them, it went by very quickly, you know, and there was no great problems with it. Just everything seemed to work, you know.
And about Nashville, actually, since you mentioned it, it seems, you know, that city has become like the most exciting place to compose and record music right now. Is it exactly, you know, like this, and why you chose Nashville?
Well, we've done 3 albums there. So the first album we did in 2000, I think it was 2012, when Nashville was still like it was undiscovered, really. All musicians knew about it, but people didn't. And that was when it was at its best. But since then, of course, thousands of people are moving to Nashville now. And they haven't got the infrastructure to cope with it, you know. So all the roads are jammed, and all of the Tennesseans are moving out. We're moving to Alabama, you know, and I mean, we just had some very sad news that the studio we used for the last 3 albums, the tracking room, which I must say, apart from Abbey Road, is the best studio I've ever been in, has just been sold, and they're going to turn it into condominiums.
No.
Yeah, and they're doing that. All the studios are going. It's terrible, really. So,
oh wow.
So it was a bit. We were very conscious of that fact when we were there last year, that Nashville was changing.
Yeah.
There were different people coming in, and it was getting very much more cosmopolitan, you know.
Yeah. Such a pity, because it seems that there was like a magical atmosphere there.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to love just, you know, after we'd done a bit of work, maybe I'd go and have something to eat with Roger. Then you just drift down the strip, you know, the Broadway. And there must be 30 or 40 bands playing.
Oh, wow.
You know, and you learn which of the places put on the bands you like. And you'd see something amazing, you know, bands that are on the road in America continually.
Yeah.
You know, it takes them 5 years to get around the circuit.
Right.
And they're in a van, you know, and, you know, they don't get paid in Nashville, the bands. They've got a bucket.
Right.
And, you know, you say to these bands, you know, tell them who you are. Oh, really, man? I said, yeah, how much are you making tonight? Oh, we didn't do so well. We only got $2,000.
Wow.
And, you know, that's one gig in a night, and they maybe do 2 or 3 a night.
Right.
And I said, you don't want a keyboard player, do you?
Oh, wow. All right. Is there any song of the new album that you like in particular that you're most proud of?
I like Power of the Moon very much. I think it's very Deep Purple, that. Yeah, very mysterious. And Ian Gillan did a great job on that. Well, he does a great job on everything, but, you know, especially he really captured it for me.
Right.
I like Power of the Moon, yeah. And I like Throw My Bones.
Wow, great one.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah.
So, John, when you have such, you know, a long, solid, important, and well-focused career, how can you not fall into the trap, you know, of making the music that the fans expect from you, but still, you know, what satisfies yourselves as well? Is it difficult?
It is difficult. You've got to find the balance, you know, when you're playing live. You just can't play the old classics, all of them every night, because you kind of go mad, you know. you become a cartoon character of yourself. So we always try and put the new material. You mix it up, you know.
Yeah.
I remember we did a tour of France 3 years ago, and we got complaints from the fans, you know, that we weren't doing enough from the new album. You know, so we had to put a couple more tunes in, and that seemed to satisfy everyone. Yeah. You never can tell.
But I mean, when it comes also to write new songs, is it
Yeah.
something that influence, in a sense, we have to be Deep Purple. So, of course you are, but sometimes maybe.
No, the band has its own zeitgeist, if you like. It works in a certain way, unlike any other band I've ever worked with, actually. It just kind of happens. You're going in the rehearsal studio, and Ian Pace goes, blah, and he's off, and we all follow him, and, things turn up that you never expected,
Yeah. Did you ever think, Don, how different, would have been Deep Purple, the band, their career, if you were there since the beginning? Did you ever think about it?
If I was there from the beginning?
Yeah. Do you think it would have, gone any different, or you never thought about that?
No, it was John Lord's band. I mean, the trouble I had when I joined, when John left and I joined the band, is that the band was in shock.
Yeah.
That they didn't think John would leave, and he did, and it was quite difficult to cope with. They didn't know who they were anymore without him, so to speak. But it took a couple of years, but then it started to settle in. So I'm proud of my contribution to that. But I was only 20 when Deep Purple broke. So mind you, so was Ian Pace.
And do you remember the day that you received the call, to join in at John's place, and how did it feel? And was the experience exactly as you expected it to be?
Well, the phone went, and I was very busy at the time. I was doing working on an album for someone, and I was doing some orchestral arrangements for a festival. And my wife comes in and said, Roger Glover's on the phone. I go, oh, blimey. So Roger says, what are you doing in 2 days' time? I said, I've got all these sessions on. He said, do you fancy coming and doing, 4 gigs with Purple? John's had to drop out to get a operation. I said, okay, then. I'll do it. I said, what's in the set list? So Roger goes, well, what do you fancy? So we kind of came to an agreement. I mean, I was very familiar with the numbers, but not all of them.
Oh, yeah.
So there was a mix-up, and I got to the rehearsal in Aarhus in Denmark, and I was late. They'd put me on the wrong plane, so I got about 15 minutes, and we did a number called Fools, and that went quite well. And My Woman from Tokyo.
Oh, yeah?
And then we all went to the bar, and they all had a big smile on their face. And they said, oh, Ian Gillan goes, we should do the Well-Dressed Guitar. It's an instrumental by Steve. So next afternoon, day of the gig, Steve comes down, teaches me this fearfully complicated thing. And I went on stage with Deep Purple at the Skanderborg Festival, 30,000 people up the hill. It's a most remarkable sight, And it was, I mean, the first 5 minutes were a nightmare, but after that, I kind of, all right.
Is that true that you used, for the very first period, John's Hammond and his stuff? Yeah. Okay.
Well, what was it? Obviously, when I stood in for him, I was using his gear.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was a bit amazed by it, actually. It wasn't in a very good state. And when I joined the band full time, I brought my gear in, but the road crew were very unwilling to set it up. I mean, it was a very curious attitude. What do you want that for? I said, well, this is my gear, man. I said, well, we've got gear here. I said, yeah, but I don't want it. It's all, it was all rusty and none of it worked really. It was very strange. But the band had sunk into a bit of a rut, I think. They've been on the road for 15 years. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, so I shook it up a bit, I put my gear in. And then when we got to LA to do the album, I said the organ needs repairing, and I got my guy in LA. He's called Bill Axeman, and he took his axe to it, and he ripped the whole thing out and just rebuilt it.
Wow.
And it started working properly again, the organ, you know. So it had a long history, that organ, so I'm part of it.
Yeah.
But eventually it was Fleetwood Mac's organ, you know, and John brought it from Fleetwood Mac. So it had been on the road since 1966.
Wow.
Almost continually. John got in 74. Wow. And it was on the road with us till 2007, where it fell off a plane in Russia.
Oh my God.
The guys got on and they pushed it, and there was no ramp. So it just came off, and that was the end of it. So
wow.
It had a long innings, but yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So I stopped using the C3, and I used I much prefer Hammond A100s. So that's what we use now. That's my choice. You know. Yeah.
And among the Deep Purple classic albums, you know, from the 70s and 80s, is there any record you would have wanted, you know, to be involved in, and or which is close, you know, to this Whoosh new album?
I like Who Do We Think We Are? I think that's the closest album to Whoosh. That's an album I'm very fond of. Nobody talks about it much, but it's a very brilliant piece of work, you know. The drumming's incredible, and John Lord's playing is out of this world, really, on that album. And the band were breaking up as they made it. You know, there were terrible conflicts going on, I think.
Yeah.
But the music held them together, you know.
Yeah.
Sense, I love it.
And among, you know, the records that you've done with the band, which is the one that you're most proud of, and why?
Well, I'm proud of all of them, really. I really enjoyed the first album, the Bananas album, you know, because I was back in LA and it was in a decent studio, and, you know, the band was sounding good. And I really quite like that album. But the new one's the one I like the most, Whoosh.
Yeah, because it is the fresh one. That's why. That's the trick.
It's fresh. It really sounds, you know, everybody got it together, you know, particularly the mix. I think Bob did a fantastic job on the mix. It doesn't sound like I would expect. Yeah. You know, when I heard it, I went, wow. You know, it sounded something different, new information, you know. It's very exciting to hear it.
And did you have any, you know, say? I mean, can you tell Bob, you know, we want this, we want that, or it was actually his part to do, you know, mix and production, and you couldn't have a say on it?
What, the keyboard player tell Bob Ezrin what to do? I don't think that'll ever happen. No, you don't. He's the kind of guy, he's 3 or 4 steps ahead of you. So you don't have to say anything to him. He just does, you know, he's one of those guys. He's very brilliant at what he does. And it's a lesson being around him, you know.
Yeah.
One I've really enjoyed, you know, I've you know, tremendous fan of his, you know, and the way he works. So my son's my keyboard tech, you know, Mike. And so Mike came into the business in 2006 and started working for me. So he'd encountered the new music business where everybody was polite, you know. And of course, when he encountered Bob Ezrin, Bob isn't polite at all. He was quite shocked.
Oh
and I said, this is how things used to be in the music business. Everybody was like that, you know, dynamic and rude and get things done. And Mike didn't take very well to Bob. And then, you know, when they each saw what each of them did, they became great friends, you know. It was quite a turnabout. Mike suddenly went, I've suddenly got it with Bob Ezrin. He's amazing, isn't he? I said, yes.
Yes, he is. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Don, you got trained, you know, with classical piano. When rock and roll entered the picture for you, and how your dad, you know, normal take it. You're a family of musicians, if I'm correct. Also, your brothers play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one brother's a keyboard player, and he's not full time. He just, weekend warrior is what they call him. But Keith was, one of the top guitar players in London. He was a session musician, and he worked in the theatre all his life. He did very well, but he never came out of London.
Oh, wow, okay.
I'd stay in London on the end of the phone, waiting for the call. He worked with Tom Jones and Nick Kershaw, and he did a lot of things. Keith, he's retired now, and
okay.
He trains dogs for he's a trainer. He's very good with animals, and that's what he does now. He plays a bit of guitar, yeah.
But being, classical trained as you are, do you think that gave you like an extra oomph for something like that? Playing rock and roll, a different discipline maybe, or how do you feel?
It's very good. It trains you up. I'm very glad I went to music college, and I've learned to play piano properly. It stands you in good stead. So that when you're in a band, no matter how big or small, you've got to approach everything the same. This is serious.
Okay.
I used to have a band. I started life with a band on a cruise liner. When cruise liners were a graveyard for musicians, that's where they went to die. And then nobody could play. So I turned up, I was 21. And all the old musicians were there, and they were terrible. So I went to the camp and said, "You got to get rid of this lot." And I brought some of my guys on that I knew, and we just transformed the ship. They couldn't believe it. But we used to work very hard. We'd rehearse every day, and
wow. But you started. This was the plan for you, or actually your dream? Was be part of a band.
No, my plan was to be a music teacher and get married, and that's what I was going to do. And the phone rang, and I just knew, that there was an agent said, "I've seen your band playing. We want you to play on the ships for six weeks."
Right.
Okay, but I knew it, that this is it. I'm off. This is the start, something else.
So you've been also a session player for a long time. Which is the best and worst part, of being, let's say, a hired gun? And in which way the commitment is different when you are part, of a band as a first string player and, credited,
When you're doing a session, you have to go in and really think it's always the case. They never know what they want,
Okay.
So you've got to, before you go in, you've got to think, what would they want? You've got to think it through a bit. And if you give them something, they say, "No, that's not what we want." That gives you the idea of, what to play. And I always like doing sessions. It keeps you very honest. And, being on the London session scene, it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
If you go into Abbey, I did quite a few sessions with, and as an arranger.
Yeah.
Excuse me while I just wipe my nose a bit. And some of the sessions were in the big room at Abbey Road, this big orchestral room.
Yeah.
And you walk in there and there's an orchestra there or a string section. You go, whoo. The first instinct is to run.
Okay.
As fast as you can. But as they've turned up, you better do what you've been paid to do.
Do you think that the figure, of the session player, musician, changed over the years, considering also, that the industry has changed much, the music business? Is it a job, for example, that you would recommend today or not?
Well, I don't think it really exists anymore. When I was on the London scene, there were 100 studios in London, I would say. And some very, very good ones. There were at least 20 that were top notch. Backing singers were the thing. To be a string player or a backing singer was the thing to do. And there were three girls I knew that used to travel around London in a Rolls Royce waiting for the calls to come on there. They had a phone installed in their Rolls Royce, and they turned up at the studio. Miriam Stocksley was the leader of them, and they just used to go from session to session, and that's how it was for them. Of course, they were brilliant musicians,
right?
And that's what you had to be. You had to be very good, because if you weren't, that you'd soon know about it.
But you have to be very good also to play with Deep Purple. And I'm sure that, being part of a band like that, it's something that, it's a unique experience. So,
you can't rest or you can't go in and, what shall we do? It's real serious with them. And, as soon as Ian Pace starts laying down the beat, you better be ready, They're all tough guys.
Right. Okay, so since 1974, your list of guest appearances and sessions is so long and keeps counting. Yeah. If you have to pick 3 titles, 3 records, or 3 sessions, which define, the range of your artistic path and also the distinctive backbone of your sound, which ones would you pick?
Oh, the White Snake 87.
Okay.
The keyboards on that, like on Still of the Night. And that was something that was done very quickly. They flew me out to Canada and I did it in two or 3 days, I think. That's a good one. What else? I can't think. Oh,
you've done so many.
Still Got the Blues, Gary Moore.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, I did all the strings arranging on that album. We did it in Abbey Road, and it was fantastic. And I remember for the actual title track, Still Got the Blues, we had a 24-piece string section, and who I knew pretty well, and we played the arrangement, and they looked at me and said, "Are you sure this is Gary Moore?" I said, "Yeah." And Gary wasn't there. Gary didn't turn up because he was in an accident on the motorway. So. And he arrived at the studio with 10 minutes of the session left, and I'd done everything. And he said, "Well, I better listen." So he listened to Still Got the Blues, and he went, yeah. Midnight Blues, he listened to that. And there was one other track. I said, "What do you think then, Gary?" He said, "I owe you lunch."
Oh, wow.
So he bought me lunch in the canteen, and we were able to save the string section. You won't be needed for another session. So that was, it was cheaper for him to buy me lunch than to keep the strings on.
Of course.
But it was a nice thing to say,
Okay, for the third pick, you must take a Deep Purple stuff. I mean, a record or a song.
I like Rapture of the Deep, actually. That's a great track.
All right.
Yeah, on the title track of the Deep Purple album, and that was a lot of it came from me, that track, and we had great fun doing it, I must say.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Don, at which stage is your autobiographical book? Did you carry on writing maybe during the quarantine? Is it a project in the can?
Well, the trouble is I'm always halfway through it, but my career keeps going on.
Okay.
So when I get a chance to write a bit. No, I haven't done much in quarantine. I've been sorting through all the, I call it the immemorabilia. I've got all the pictures and the tour itineraries and so I've been sorting through that and getting everything ready and trying to write a page a day.
Okay.
So it's coming on.
How many chapters you have ready?
Well, I'm halfway through it. It's about 120 pages at the moment.
Okay. So. But you don't have a deadline at the moment.
No.
Okay.
I talked to a publisher and they want to by the end of the year. So it looks like I'll probably be able to do it,
Good. And how do you see, the after pandemic for live music? We will have maybe longer tours as a consequence, but, to satisfy the people, which will have a hunger, for concerts, and also for the artists, which, has suffered as the fans, the distance from the road.
Yes, it's been a curious time. I mean, there were at the start of all this, all of the music, the bands got very busy, doing Zoom tracks and, making T-shirts and trying to get things going, but it just died down, because the business is playing live. That's where it comes from, is going out and playing to an audience.
Yeah.
And without that, it doesn't really exist. And so I can't say what's going to happen. Things don't look as bad as they did 3 months ago. That's all I know. I think things are looking better. We'll see. Maybe they got a vaccine.
As you mentioned before, preparing the set list for a live show for Deep Purple is not an easy thing. But how do you prepare it normally? Is it like you're all together, everybody has a say, or there's one member of the band that, writes the backbone of it, and then you all, how does it work?
Well, everybody has a say, but, you just use common sense. We've got to start with a classic, it's usually Highway Star, and the first 5 numbers, we don't stop. There's no break. We just go from one to another. And then, when we stop, suddenly the audience realize, God, what was that? Half an hour of, whoa! And then we do a slow number, and then there'll be something else, and then we put Lazy in. And they've got to think there's going to be a keyboard solo or a drum solo. It sorts itself out pretty quickly. You got to end with Smoke, Space Truckin' somewhere near the end, Perfect Strangers is near the end.
Yeah. Is there any new song that you already, figure that would be perfect, for the live set from the new album?
Well, but Throw My Bones, I think it's a great song. And there's quite a few on the album, really. You never know till you play them live. Something that you think's going to be killer live track. Yeah. When you actually play live, the audience go, "Oh, I don't think much of that." Pacey told me, I said, "Well, why don't we do Rat Bat Blue?" And what was it? House of the Rat. I can't remember what the name of the track is. And why have you never done that? He said, well, we only played it once and it died a death. So they've never played it since. And I think it's one of the great classics.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's amazing, really, how it goes.
And is there any particular song, maybe a classic one, that I'm not saying that you are bored, of playing, but that now maybe you play on an autopilot, let's say, that you have to, but that doesn't give those chills anymore?
There was one we played Woman from Tokyo so much that one night I forgot where I was. Forgot to do the piano solo.
Oh my God.
I saw Roger looking around and Steve looking around after. Oh, so, I hurriedly adjusted. But after that, every time we play it, every time I got to the keyboard solo, Roger and Steve would both look around and
it's your turn.
Don't forget this time, they never forget.
But in those situations, the family feeling of course helps. You are a big family, so.
Yeah. No, it's a very wonderful thing to be part of. It's not as easy being part of it as people might think. Bands are funny things.
Okay,
Okay,
last question. No, you wanted to say something? Sorry.
Just said especially English bands,
All right. Okay. I got the point. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, we all can't wait, to see Deep Purple back on the road. seems you have, zero plans to slow down. But what I wanted to ask you is, how long will this long goodbye be?
Well, I think we've got gigs in. I think it was supposed to be this year that we were going to end in December. And I think that would have been it, to be honest with you. But everything's been moved a year to exactly the same place next year. So if we all survive, if the world survives,
yeah,
and they find a way of doing gigs again, we'll be out there doing it. Yeah.
So you mean that you talked, actually, it's, that after this tour is gonna be it for sure?
I mean, you can never be sure about anything, especially in the world of rock and roll.
Okay.
I was talking to somebody, a journalist yesterday, and he said, "Do you think the last gig, Deep Purple's last gig, you can get everybody together, get Glenn Hughes and Richie?" And
yeah, that would be.
I said, "What a dreadful thought." I've been trying to organise that. It'd be a nightmare. I said, Deep Purple's last gig will be one that nobody expects. It might be a little gig somewhere, one of the smaller gigs, and then we don't do any more. I don't think it'll ever be, this is the last gig. It just...
You'll know that afterwards. That's what you mean?
People will look back and say, God, that was the last gig they played.
Okay.
Like with Gary Moore. Gary Moore's last gig was in the Kremlin. And just as he was building up his career was building up again, and he played the Kremlin, and that was the last gig he did.
Yeah.
And I know I got friends in Russia who went there, and they said, to think that was his last gig is terribly sad. Nobody expected it, but yeah.
And we all miss Gary very much. So let me close with this, which is the best memory you have of Gary Moore, and that you want to share with us?
It was when I was with Colosseum too. We were in Hamburg, and we're having breakfast in the Pizza Hut, and a Carlos Santana piece came on. That was a slow one. I forget what it's called. And Gary said, God, we need something like that. So we kind of wrote Parisian Walkways in the Pizza Hut.
Oh, my God.
On the Reeperbahn in Hamburg. And that night we played a club in Bremen. And we rehearsed it and we played it live. And I never forget his playing it. It was like he'd known it all his life. It was absolutely stunning, and the audience went berserk at the end. And it wasn't called Parisian Walkways; it was called Biscayne Blues.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget his playing that night. It was just so, his Les Paul and the passion he put into this tune. He knew he got something.
Oh yeah. He
knew it. Yeah.
Okay, very, very last thing before we say goodbye. Yep. Did you ever think, of what will happen to you, after Deep Purple will call it quits? Do you already have plans on what's next?
Well, I made plans about 10 years ago.
Okay.
I thought, what am I going to do when this ends? Because it's going to end in a couple of years. I thought, I'm going to go and watch my football team again. Sunderland was my team. And when I was a kid, I used to watch them every week, and I thought I'd love to go and see them. So we went up there, and we got a nice little cottage by the sea in Sunderland, so we could have a holiday up there because it's quite nice, and I could go and see the matches. And that was 8 years ago. That was the plan, and
okay.
spend more time up north because I'm a northerner. Okay. But I haven't really been able to put it into action yet. The tour kept going,
Okay. So thanks, Don, for this interview. Thanks for your time.
Very nice talking to you.
It was such a pleasure, and I hope to meet you when you will come to Milan. Okay?
Yeah, I can't wait to get back to Italy. I just love being there,
Okay. Thanks very much. Let's close this with a ciao.
Ciao. Okay, ciao bambino.
Ciao.
See you soon.